Hello and welcome to another session of AZMAT System tutorials. We'll continue with the asset swap model commands. As you know by now, on this particular session, I'm using Excel 2010, which is Excel version 14. Click on the additional version copyright information section, 2010 Excel 14. Click on the system info, and then I should get information about the PC and the operating system I'm using. So in the top line, OS name, operating system name is Microsoft Windows XP Professional. So I'm using Excel 2010 which is Excel 2010, which is Excel version 14 under Windows XP. I go back here. First thing I'm going to do is just save the AZMAT data file. So it will put in the current date, which is 8th of September 2017 and 2:06 a.m. Now this is UK. As you can see, in the US, this date would be regarded as August the 9th, 2017. But I'm here in UK, so the date format is different, but I'm actually displaying the month as letters, so there is no confusion, hopefully. So it's 8th of September 2017, 2:06 a.m. I have opened the ZRUSD curve for file edit. I'm going to just simply go to the curve menu and save the curve changes. Yes, okay. Okay to continue with the command. And while it's carrying out the command, do not interrupt the command. Please wait until command is completed, message is displayed, or ready is displayed at the lower left corner of the screen here. Now this is an older PC I'm using because I'm running Windows XP. So it takes time for you to even look at these messages. On a faster machine, it will be much quicker. You may not even have time to read those messages. Okay, so it has completed all the required calculations and saved that file. I'm also going to do the same one on the GBP curve. In fact, this GBP curve, I won't even open it to file edit and do that. I can also just simply use the curve file cal command if I know I don't need to do the actual any changes to the file at all, to the structure or the prices or rates, for example. Rates or prices, I should say. Now I can just simply enter GBP. So that's just the 3-character currency code for a reference curve. So AZMAT System will automatically enter the ZR at the beginning. So it'll be ZR GBP dot XLSX, because it's Excel version 14, Excel 2010. Older versions of Excel, up to Excel 2003, it'll be only 3-character extension .xls. Right, it's completed the required calculations, and the file has been saved. So now I'm ready to use either the US dollar or the GBP reference curve in any calculations I wish. So because it's an asset swap model, we're going to go through the asset swap model commands. So first thing I'm going to do is go through the click add-in. You may notice I click the J menu, click on the asset swap model to open the asset swap model. There. ZB AZMAT.XLSX. Let's open that. Now, since the maturity date is here, I'm going to change the maturity date to something. Let's see. This is just, I have no idea whether it's a weekend or not. It's a weekday, Thursday, 29th August, 2024. Right now, we are, as I speak, It is 8th of September 2017. So let's now, this line has changed. This warning input data has been changed. Present value, PV, present value, yield, and net P&L, which is profit and loss results displayed, may not be correct. So I need to carry out those calculations. I can have a look at this as well. Below, if you see, I have the cash flows. Bond cash flows, swap cash flows. So first thing I'm going to do is go through using the asset swap model commands, which is Z menu here, and calculate the net P&L, net profit and loss, and 1 basis point move. So the 1 basis point move, what happens, are displayed here. We have gone through this in other tutorials. I'm not going to go through details now. Let's just do that. So calculate net P&L and 1 BP move. See, that's wiped out first, and it will display once it's done, calculated the results for that. There, it's done for that. Right, it's all done. And the message here you see is just a general message. Commands and Z menu have been specifically designed to work with this file. I use this particular message because I want to have something in this particular line to indicate that all the results displayed are correct for all the input parameters for the bond this side and the swap this side. If there is an error or there is some other message I need to display, for example, if I change the maturity, if I change any of these, it will say because some of these results are auto-calc. That means it just calculates as soon as I change any data. Others require calculations, which for which I need to get data from other files external to this asset swap model and programs. So then I have a different message here. And right now, what it means, what it's saying is this particular generate just a simple message saying that all the commands in the Z menu are asset swap model commands are here to be used with this particular model. So this particular swap, asset swap for this bond, because for currency bond is US dollar, currency swap is also US dollar. If I did that, if the swap is made, it will actually result in a loss of 47,571 US dollar. So you may not want to do this to recommend to a client. So what I would do is I'll actually change this. Let's calculate one where we can get some profit instead of a loss. Let's see if I change it to 2020. At this point, I have no idea this 29th August 2020 is a weekend or weekday. So it's a Saturday. So I don't think because since any maturity, if it falls on a Saturday, it will most likely be forwarded to the next working day, which would be Monday in this case, on the 31st. I'm going to change it, unless in UK, that would be a bank holiday, the last Monday in August. I don't have to have the last. I can change it to, say, make it 29th. I can change it to 28th, which is a Friday. There. So whatever this data, I'm not going to go through in detail. There is reason why I'm doing this now. And I don't want to digress in that for now. But for this particular date, now, since I've changed the maturity date, this message is changed, saying that the result displayed may not be correct. Well, some calculations are correct, depending as soon as I change that will change. For example, here you have just because it's not visible on the screen doesn't mean it's not calculated. It is calculated. The calculation bond net cash flows and the swap net cash flows are calculated as soon as you change the maturity or the frequency of the coupon, frequency of the LIBOR frequency. Immediately, as soon as you change, they change. But there are other calculations, for example, the net P&L and the various other results displayed here. It could be up here as well, in the lower part of the screen. They may not be correct, it says. I'm going to simply go through. In fact, I want to take this off. Remember, anything in blue is calculated. Anything in yellow, any area in yellow is what the user enters. I'll take that off as well from here. So having done that, input data has been changed, so that result displayed may not be correct. For that, I'm going to now ask AZMAT System to do the calculations, net profit loss, and 1 basis point move. Wait till it becomes ready, and this warning message should be changed to like a note message, simply information. So if this particular, as you can see, the net P&L, we have a profit, a very, very small profit, $353, but for this particular combination of parameters on the bond parameters, currency of bond, and the currency of swap, there's a slight profit. Very, very small, almost nothing. But I think I'm going to keep this one for now. I'm going to change this deal to, instead of what if, I want it 1, it'll be live deal. And at this point, I want to save it. We won't go through into it now. We've been through in various other tutorials how this is calculated briefly, but we will at a future date may go into detail. But for now, I'm just going to save it. So save this transaction as a new save all this information you see on the screen. The whole model will be saved as a new transaction deal, and a number will be given here. Transaction deal number will be given by AZMAT System. Save as a new transaction deal. It'll open the database, the asset swap database, and he's given a number, generate a unique number, and letting me know that this particular transaction or deal has been saved in the database file, which is now open. First 2 characters are the initials of the user, which is I'm using AA, so it's AA. And then B AZMAT.XLSX is, as I noticed, is the second character onwards of the financial calculation model that I'm using. So in this case, it happens to be the asset swap model. So if I go and have a quick look at it, it's 958101. It'll be at the top, 958101, 8th of September 2017. And all this information here, you see, each row is for a different bond, different transaction or deal. And the summary of the deal is like this. So it's a 5% coupon maturing in 2020, just a year, in US dollar, swapped into 6-month US dollar LIBOR plus 16 basis points. So the currency is the same, so it's interest rate swap. Right, let's just go through briefly. Having done that, I'm just going to explain some of the things, general one, to do with asset swap model. So I have the asset windows file I'm going to use here, switch windows, get the asset swap model on the screen. So Asset swap model. Now here it explains how and when to use some of the commands in the asset swap model, the highlights. The asset swap model in AZMAT system enables a dealer to calculate in seconds the bond market price, the LIBOR swap margin, or the net profit and loss of a particular swap. All these calculations are carried out using the relevant yield curves for the currency of bond and the currency of swap. Remember, these currencies, they don't have to be US dollar, they could be any other currency, and they do not have to be the same one either. If the two currencies are the same for the currency of the bond and the currency of swap, it's called interest rate swap because the currencies are the same. If the currencies are different, then it's called cross-currency swap. The cash flows are calculated and displayed. So if I split the screen, go down, scroll down here, as you can see, bond cash flows are there, swap cash flows are there. So these cash flows are calculated and displayed almost immediately as bond and swap details are entered. Anywhere you would enter the data is in the yellow area, and the green, which happens to be in the yellow area. And the reason I'm using green color here is just to make sure, because these three values are very specific to certain calculations within the asset swap model. But this is the area, since those values you can change, that's why they are within the yellow area. Anyway, you see in blue, here or there, or in here indeed, that is not in yellow, is somewhere you do not change. It's somewhere only AZMAT system calculates and puts the results out. So the cash flows here, bond cash flows are shown here, swap cash flows are shown here. They are calculated and displayed almost immediately as bond and swap details are entered anywhere here or there. Of course, if you just simply change the issuer name, bond issuer name, or the counterparty, the short name, here, it's not going to change the actual values. They have to be numerical values, which have to be changed in order to get the numerical results changed. For any deal, the user can change individual cash flows on bond and or swap side, and also the maturity date and or amount if required. Now, the AZMAT system is very, very specialized financial model, a very specialist financial model, and it allows the user to change these the cash. The user cannot change here, but that's why it's actually given this yellow area where you can enter the cash flows or the swap cash flows here, if the dealer wants to do that. And so individual cash flows on bond and or swap side, and also the maturity date and or amount if required. Also for bond and swap side independent. Now, we're not going to go through those in detail right now, because I need to first go through various, unless you were actually an asset swap dealer or trader, these, just by changing here, it's not going to make any difference. You will not learn, if you like, right now. Why would you actually do that? So we're not going to go in that detail right now, but just to let you know that you can actually change simply by giving the cash flow number and the amount on this side for the bond cash flows and the swap cash flows. This is not normally available in other SSOP models. This has been specifically created as a result of, if you like, wish list by the author of AZMAT System after he's talked to something like about 22 bond dealers and traders in various international investment banks in London. And this is something that's come out that is what they would like to happen, to be able to do. So that's why this particular financial model has been created. And so what you see is a very, very specialist financial model. It's not just simple as the SOAP model commands. So we'll go through all these in later detail, but right now, just to let you know what it can and cannot do. Also, for bond and swap side independently, so for bond and swap side independently, so that means each one you can change, only these changes apply only to this side or that side, to the bond side or the swap side. The user can choose to have any cash flow dates falling on Saturday or Sunday to be left unchanged, or specify that any such dates be moved according to the preceding, following, or modified following convention. So here, by simply changing, giving its cash flows if Saturday to Sunday, by entering 0, -1, +1, or -101, either for the bond side or the cash or the swap side, user can say which convention it should use, AZMAT system should use. So either they could be left unchanged. If it happens to be any cash flow falling on a Saturday or Sunday, should be left unchanged, or it should be, or if you will use once the AZMAT system should move, should by specifying these numbers, 0, -1, +1, or -101, you're letting AZMAT system know what it should change it to, whether it should be preceding, -1, following, +1, or -101 for modified following convention. We will go into these later by examples in a later tutorial. After entering or changing bond or swap details, or both, or getting AZMAT system to retrieve previously saved bond or swap details, from the user's database, which is here. This is particular, remember, this is the dealer's, a particular dealer's own database. You can see the first two letters are AA, in this case, current user, I'm the current user, I use AA. So it's my own database of all these bonds. What if are zeros here, but and if it's 1, it's live deals. Other users, any other user, say in an investment bank, you may have dozens or hundreds of dealers in a particular bank, and they will all have their own user file, database files, for which they can simply just do what if calculation, see what happens if I did this, if I change something here, change something there, and hold that deal or transaction, as you see on this screen, with all the details. They are stored in the database. So after entering or changing bond or swap details or getting AZMAT System to retrieve previously saved bond or swap details from the dealer's own database by saying, right, I want to load by using the command from Z menu, load old transaction deal. It can load from that database which we just saw any transaction or deal stored by that particular user previously on the same day or any day, whenever it was, as long as it will open that, bring it here, and calculate the cash flows for that particular deal. All the cash flows you see here, they're not stored anywhere. They are actually calculated based on the data as you see here. Not just what you can see here, but also anywhere in the yellow area, any area you see in the yellow area. Based on all that, it calculates the actual cash flows you see here. Based on this, anywhere in yellow you see. Whatever you see in yellow is the input data entered by the user. So if you are not an asset swap dealer or trader, all this here information may not make much sense to you now. But if you bear with me, follow these tutorials and read the help file and play around with changing various information here. Anywhere in yellow, as you see, you can change data, whatever you like. And it gives you what the actual should be. For example, what the input data should be. See, A in here for annual will be A, S, or number 124. And the coupon basis can be 2, 3, 0, US. It all means something here. 4, EC, 3360 basis. We will go into detail later on, or you can read the help file, which explains, or indeed, just by following other tutorial where I have gone through these details in for these items in detail, or if I have not, as we speak now, will go through in various other tutorials. Everything you see here, every single row you see here, what it is has been explained or will be explained. And you just have to follow. Simple thing is in the most of these help files by explain in the actual file name of the video tutorial, pre-recorded, or it will be live as well later on. The menu. So K menu commands explained in the actual video tutorial name would have K menu, and so on. The Z menu for this asset swap, or the utility menu is U or J, so on. So after entering or changing bond swap details or getting AZMAT System to retrieve previously saved bond swap details from the dealer's own database, the net profit or loss of that swap can be calculated. So once you've loaded the details from, say, an old transaction deal, whatever it is, then you just use from there commands Z menu calculate the net profit loss 1 basis point move, or just calculate the net profit loss without what happens in 1 basis point. I'm not interested. It's a quicker one. Calculate swap margin, calculate bond market price, and so on. Or you can use the control keys even for these commands to calculate the bond market price, swap margin, or the net P&L, profit and loss. If values for bond market price and required profit loss are fixed. So if you fix, for example, bond market price and the required P&L, if they are fixed, LIBOR swap margin is calculated. If the values for LIBOR swap margin here and the required profit or loss are fixed, these two are fixed, the bond market price is calculated. That's why you can see the significance of why I'm using the color green for these three items. And lastly, if values for the bond market price and LIBOR swap margin are fixed, the net P&L or profit loss of the swap is calculated. So basically, by fixing one of these three, by fixing two of these three, any of these three in green, the third one is calculated. So fix these two, that's calculated. Fix these two, that's calculated. Or fix these two, this is calculated. Simple. And you may enjoy actually by changing this and that and see what happens. But in real life, an asset swap model, an asset swap dealer or trader will actually be using these, changing various items, not just these, but also practice, not practice actually, but just by changing the coupon frequency, coupon basis, all LIBOR basis, all LIBOR frequency, etc., and the actual maturity, depending on what the client of that particular dealer has in the portfolio, bond portfolio, which could be hundreds of bonds for large, for example, an insurance company client or whatever client they have, or for the bank's own books. Bank, large investment bank may have their own bond portfolio. So depending on what they have, and then what is in the market, you can try various things. Say, if I swap these details, this particular bond to this particular bond, for example, what will happen? Will it give me a profit? As in this case, it gives very, very small marginal profit, or huge profit, or loss. So if it's a loss, obviously you wouldn't swap it. But if it results in a profit, then the dealer might ring the client and say, right, if XYZ client say, if you actually change this particular bond you have in your portfolio and change to this one in the market, somebody else has it, just swap it. It will result you in this amount of profit. So that's the idea of a swap model. It's really a money-making machine in the hands of a bond, asset swap bond dealer or trader. In one particular investment bank, there were 4 asset swap dealers on a particular, on one desk, and they would have this asset swap model, not this particular model, but an asset swap model which I had developed, an earlier version, which was a very basic one, compared with so let's just finish that point. So very basic one, and they told me personally that they would have this asset swap model, that particular asset swap model on their screen, on their PC, about 85% of every single working day on their screen. Various calculations carrying out, and then speaking to the client, and then doing various swaps. But this particular model you see, compared with that model would be like an ordinary family saloon car. This one is like Rolls-Royce compared with that. What in terms of the functionality it offers, the fact that the user can change these cash flows, the user can have this much control of actually leaving, even if there are, if a particular cash flow falls on a Saturday or Sunday, or move it forward to the next working day, or move it backwards to the previous working day, or a modified change, and change it to modified convention. It's really a fantastic amount of control and the flexibility it offers an asset swap dealer, and other things you can change here. And you will see later on as we go how flexible it is and why it is loved so much by an asset swap dealer. And not just loved, why it is actually so useful, and why I'm calling it a money-making machine in the hands of a right asset swap dealer or trader. Because unlike, for example, unlike equities, unlike share, buying a particular share which may or may not go up at a future date, the idea of asset swap is, these are the details of the currency of bond. One, this is the currency of swap. It happens to be, say, in this case, I'm using the same currency, so it'll be an interest rate swap, but it could be different, it'll be cross-currency swap. So this is the one you have. This is the one you would want to change for your client or for your own company, your bank, or whoever you're working for, or for yourself. And if you change it today, as it is on your screen, change this, but these details, the bond with these particular values, to a bond, for example, these particular values, will it result in a profit or loss? You can get this now. So there's no, you don't have to wait tomorrow, next week, or next month, or next year to know. For example, compare this with share price of a particular company, whether it will rise or fall. This is now, as we speak. So if right now, if you change these bond details, bond with these details, these properties, if you like, to a bond with these properties, it will give you a net profit of this amount now. Of course, if it results in a loss, as we saw, if the maturity is a different one, it will result in loss. You won't do the swap. That's the whole idea. If it results in loss, don't do the swap. If it results in profit, then you go ahead and do the swap yourself for your own bank or company, or you for your client. So, when calculating the net profit or loss of swap, AZMAT system can also calculate, if required, effect of, as I said here, effect of 1 basis point movement in LIBOR swap margin on the bond market price, and vice versa. This is the one which I had here, there. Net P&L and 1 basis point move. What effect it will have, it'll show. For each dealer, live and what if. Live is when this is a live deal. I could also do a what if deal. So depending on these, or if you look in your database, everything in this column is deal type. If it's 0, it's what if. Just it's not a real deal. It's just the dealer has been trying to see if I change this, what happens to change that. Whereas this is actually a live deal. This is something which that particular dealer has carried out for his or her client. So that's why I have here one to signify that it's actually it's a live deal with those details. So for each dealer, live and what if type deals and transactions are stored in a separate database. That's why this particular dealer I have here, I'm using initials IAA. So those initials are at the beginning to signify which particular dealer has these deals. So they are for AA dealer initials, so ID is EA for that particular dealer. So you could have several different dealers databases in the same area because they're all different by the ID, if you like. So this is a separate database for each dealer. With a single command, AZMAT System can do calculations for a single deal, several deals, for all deals in the database. So just by a single command, it can carry out, as you saw in here, in the asset swap model, go up there and do calculation of one deal, one particular transaction or deal, load it from here into the asset swap model, and then carry out calculations. So that's for single deals can do that. Or it can also do, if I go back here in the database, several transactions or deals at one command. Or, for example, can do all the calculations on all what if deals, all live deals, or a combination of live and what if deals, or combination of several just, for example, just what if deals, but not all of them. For example, I could do that, or I can say, right, do all three these live deals, or do those and this one, something that's really extremely flexible, what you can get AZMAT System to do with a single command. So it can derive, i.e. calculate the market price from the given value for LIBOR swap margin. So you have the LIBOR swap margin for that, for example, it can calculate the market price, what it should be. So the dealer can change these swap margin to whatever and calculate what the market price would be. And it can also, for that particular basis, and also can do the vice versa. For example, if the price was this, what the swap margin should be. The above calculations can be carried out in a batch mode. That means you just let AZMAT System know that you want to calculate, for example, all the what if deals, all the live deals, or the entire database, all the deals in the entire database you have. In this case, I only happen to have about maybe 20, 30 deals, but the dealer could have hundreds of deals. And you can just give a command to AZMAT System and do other things. It will just carry out one by one. And when it's finished, you will have a message on the screen that says finished. all that calculation, those calculations. So that's called batch mode. You can just let it carry on doing it without the user sitting in front of the machine, if that's what you want. So they can be carried out in a batch mode by a single command as follows. So you can give a command, say, for all live deals in the database. So for all live deals, do these commands, whatever command we saw before, any of those. Or for all what if deals, do this particular command. Or all live and what if deals in the database. That means the entire database. Could be dozens or hundreds of deals. Or for user specified live and, so for example, I can say, right, do these and this one, and that one. It's a combination of whichever, whatever you like. So for user specified live and or what if deals in the database. Or just within the, for example, just that what if deals these and these two, for example. Or just that one and these three. So really very, very flexible. So for each individual deal, the user can choose to derive and calculate. User can choose to calculate, if you like, either the market price for every single one. You don't have to say for the whole lot do that. For every single one deal, you can let AZMAT System know. You can instruct AZMAT System to derive either the market price by fixing the live market price, calculate the market price by fixing the swap margin, or calculate the swap margin by fixing the market price. So it's very, very flexible. AZMAT System can do and will do exactly what the dealer wants. All these commands have been created specifically by talking to real live asset swap dealers and traders of about 22 investment banks in the city of London. And because an investment bank is not an investment just because they happen to be in London, because that's where I'm based, it doesn't mean just in London, a small office they will be doing. They'll be carrying out exactly the asset swap dealers and traders in any city in the world, because all these investment banks have branches literally in almost every major city in the world. So those commands will be carried out wherever and that particular investment bank has a branch or an office. So an asset swap dealer would be calculating and analyzing various swaps out of the several hundred possibilities from the bonds which are actively traded before telephoning a client with some suggestions and recommendations. If the client chose to deal in bonds with slightly different specifications than those proposed by the dealer, so for example, the client says, right, okay, instead of this maturity, what happens if I tried with a bond with a, say, change maturity? Instead of 29, that was 23. What happens if I tried it on the 1st of February or 3rd of March, 22, if it was that, or whatever, or by changing the basis, LIBOR margin, and instead of 16 basis points, if it was 12.75 or 12.5 or 20, whatever. Similarly, the bond market price, if it instead of 100, which is par, if it is 101.6207, whatever, any of these details, if it is changed slightly, so the dealer can calculate it almost instantly by first opening that particular database in the SSWAP model by using simply the AZMAT system from the Z menu, load old transaction deal, for example. Load that AZMAT system will load that particular those data from all the columns in that particular file in the database here, as we see. So we have here from column 1 to column 45. So 45 columns worth of data we have, remember. You may notice it's actually spread up to here, but these columns are blank. Nothing in here. This is being just shown that this column, because they are empty, is being displayed because I don't particularly want to widen this column that wide. I could have done it, but so it's just showing. So it's up to 45 columns. So for every single deal or transaction, 45 columns are used by AZMAT system to store the information of a particular bond. Remember, the cash flows are not stored. They are calculated based on the anything here. You see everything, anything and everything you see in yellow. All that is stored in 45 columns, then retrieved. And then the SSWAP dealer can change anything like coupon frequency, for example, coupon basis, all LIBOR frequency, LIBOR basis, the margin, the net required, the net P&L, the net market price of bond, and so on. Many, many things. Any of these things, present value method, redemption price of the bond, and so on. And the settlement date. Change whatever they like. If that's it, and then do the calculations. So you can see how flexible, how extremely flexible it is for a particular SSWAP model, or by changing the cash flows, changing by the actual which convention it should use. If a particular cash flow falls on a weekend, really extremely flexible it is, this particular model. So if the client chose to deal in bonds with slightly different specifications, well, it doesn't have to be slightly, it could be as vastly different if they want. But if it's slightly different, for example, then those proposed by the dealer, the entire calculation for those bonds have to be carried out again before any final decisions could be made. But since those calculations can be carried out in seconds, literally in seconds, it is almost instantaneous on faster machines current with as we in 2017 I'm speaking, which if you are listening to this and years later, this would sound it would be old. But for now, in 2017 as we speak, the machines that are available and the memory, which is, for example, I'm using a machine with 8 GB, not the current one you have. It is this particular one. I'm using Windows XP on an old machine which has 500 megabyte random access memory. So 500 megabytes is half a gigabyte. That's why some of these commands you see, you can actually see the messages I'm displaying in here while it's carrying out. On a current machine means in the year 2017, here I have this, then I'll be using, as I have used in other tutorials, on the faster machine, which got 8 GB random access memory. And so the calculations are almost instantaneous. So those calculations, by changing these, whatever it is, then just do the calculation again. You can also, the dealer doesn't actually need to go through the menu here. You just simply use the control keys as well for these commands, these 3 commands. Calculate bond market price, swap margin, and the net P&L. And then, so in the absence of a good computer system, the client would have to wait for some time before the dealer could get back with new calculations. So without asset swap model, for example, if the client says, right, change it slightly up on the present coupon frequency for instead of annual to semi-annual, or just change the basis point slightly, or change the coupon or the interest rate, it's called, change slightly, instead of 5, say 4.5 or 4 3/4. The entire calculations have to be calculated again. And without a good computer system, it would take literally hours to do that one particular calculation in an entirety. Whereas an asset swap model can do that in seconds. So in AZMAT system, an asset swap dealer can carry out dozens of swap calculations in a short time, as each swap calculation takes only a few seconds. The dealer can choose to either discard the calculations or store any swap details which can be recalled at any time. AZMAT system keeps a database of each and every transaction or deal for each dealer in a separate file. As we saw here, this is the database file for dealer with ID AA. Another dealer may be using ID KT, for example. And so that particular dealer's files, all the what if and live deals, would be stored in a separate file. So AZMAT system keeps a database of each and every transaction or deal for each dealer in a separate file. Thus, before calling the clients, the dealer can have a list of swaps calculated and ready for discussion and recommendation. So the dealer can say, right, what if, store them all as what if, and AZMAT system will give a unique transaction or deal number to see that it doesn't clash with any other transaction or deal number. And the dealer can say, right, before calling client, right, I'm going to speak to the client about this and that and these, for example. Pick up the phone and say, right, open one by one these in the asset swap model, and then speak to the client. And since it takes literally seconds, that whole transaction deal can be changed, even if the client changes slightly something, say, but what happens if I change this something, one of these items, 2 or several, and the dealer is in a position to say straight away what the net P&L would be, or the swap margin, or the net market price for those different values. So while talking to a client, the dealer can have details of a particular swap on the screen and can easily make any changes with the knowledge that the result of new calculations would be available in seconds, not in hours, as he or she would have to do by using using a calculator, or as in olden times they had to do, or a spreadsheet. Just a spreadsheet on its own would not calculate everything. In here, SSO model, for example, here, I'm using a combination of both the spreadsheet, financial model, and programming. And remember, for each particular currency reference curve, for example, US dollar reference curve, or GBP, or Japanese yen, or euro reference curve, it has to carry out various calculations, thus carries out all those, having them ready, so the results can be shown to the client in seconds. The customer's report can be faxed to the client, enabling the client to see exactly when and what amounts the customer would be required to pay. For example, here, we went through in the other tutorial, the view is to prepare customer's cash flow report or prepare bank's cash flow report. We've gone through in detail in another tutorial. So if you watch that, you will see that if you are interested in that. So that report is already there, prepared by AZMAT System. So that report can be printed and faxed to the client, enabling the client to see exactly when and what amounts the customer would be required to pay under this particular swap transaction. Thus, the whole swap transaction or deal could be discussed and agreed within minutes, with both parties knowing details of the cash flow amounts and the due dates. Exactly what is involved, customer know and the bank knows, so then they can agree to the actual transaction deal if both parties agree. If they don't agree, they say, right, what if they change the basis or something else, whatever, and they can do the calculation, the dealer can do the calculation in seconds, get the AZMAT system to print the customer's cash flow report and the bank's cash flow report, again look at it, and then if they agree, then the whole deal can be carried out within minutes, not hours, as it would have been without a good computer system or without a good SSOP model like you see on the screen here, or what you can have on your own PC. This is not just some game. This is real life SSOP model. If you, by changing these details, what happens? Real life bond dealers and traders can use it, and it will give those calculations results in seconds. So thus the whole swap transaction or deal could be discussed and agreed within minutes, with both parties knowing details of all the cash flow amounts and the due dates. AZMAT system can also produce interest rate swap purchase tickets. So interest rate swap, which is when both currencies are the same, as the interest rate swap. So interest rate swap purchase tickets and sale tickets. So in here, if you see, prepare IRS interest rate swap purchase tickets, or prepare interest rate swap sale tickets. So both of these tickets, which are a total of 9 tickets for each transaction for back office administration if required by the user. So for any transaction or deal, there are several of these tickets are prepared, printed, and then they can be sent in hard copy, like I say, for example, in post to the dealer. Dealer has it and the customer also has it, if that is what is required. Now we'll go more about SSOP model. See, it's so comprehensive that we haven't yet finished it. There's more to go into this here, but I'll try to go in as quickly as I can. Some of this will be revision, what we have done, but it's worth pointing it out here. So in the help topic, you have some pages. We explain some of the screen input and output data for the SSOP model. Please check on the underlined words or phrases to see they are used in AZMAT System. So let's get the help file open. So if I open the AZMAT view help file and go on the SSOP model, so we've done the SSOP model there, then highlight SSOP model, talking more about SSOP model. So you have all these underlined items in the SSOP model help file. If you click on there, for example, credit margin, you see what it is, what actually credit margin. You can learn a lot, quite a lot about the investment banking terminology with the various terms, what they mean, how they're used, when they were used by clicking. So if you see here, as you can see, it's a broken underline, if you like. It's not a continuous underline. So that basically explains. So for example, interest rate swap cash flows at just maturity dates. To see what it is, click that, and then it will show in more detail, quite detailed, what it is. So you can literally, even if you are an SSOP dealer or trader, it could be a good quick revision. So not everyone knows all these items. And so, and if you're not an SSOP dealer or trader, very quickly, well, depends how much time you have to spend to learn, you can learn in quite, well, very extensive detail about SSOPs models and what each of these terms mean and how and when you would use, what is applicable, what is not, and so on. So very briefly, so the more about SSOP model explains some of the screen input and output data for the SSOP model. Please click on the underlined words as I've shown you briefly. Deposit margin, what it is. Cost of basis swap, what it is. Explains to you in detail what all these terms are. These output parameters are situated in the main parameters area, margin adjustment and credit charge. So credit charge and the margin adjustment. So the output area is everything that is not in yellow or green. Think of these greens. Let's ignore these three. These three greens, regard them as, because they are within the yellow parameters area. Let's say that's all in this. So within the yellow parameters area, this whole lot, that's whole lot. Anything outside that, anything outside, not this one, but anything outside here. All these are the result calculation. Anything outside the yellow area are the input. That is the input area. So the outside, and so the output parameters are situated in the main parameters area here. So the margin adjustment percentage for gross price, when the gross price is not equal to 100 is that. and the credit charge in US dollar, because it's US dollar because the currency here is US dollar I'm using. And here, if the cash flow, Saturday, Sunday, cash flow both for the bond side and for the swap side, if it's equal to 1, if cash flow Saturday, Sunday is equal to 1, it means equal to 1 is avoid. This input parameter is situated just above the cash flows. So cash flows are here. There is the input parameter here. Remember, the input parameter would be the yellow area. Maturity adjustments. These input parameters are situated just above the cash flow area. So there your maturity adjustments are here. Add or subtract there the actual cash flows, and then here this is the maturity. Add or subtract maturity days and or principal amount. I mean, how flexible can you be? This really, that is why this particular asset swap model is like a Rolls Royce compared with the original asset swap model, which I had prepared long time ago, which I had developed, designed and developed. That was like a simple, ordinary family saloon car. This gives so much flexibility to the user, so much power, and what the user can do is unbelievable. But it does. So the maturity adjustments can be made here. Cash flow adjustments can be made here. The actual, if any maturity falls Saturday, Sunday, you can actually instruct the AZMAT system to leave it as it is, if you like. If it falls on Saturday, and leave it there, or change it, go back to the previous working day, go to the following working day, or to modified convention, use that, whichever the user wants. So, and as we know by now, when the two currencies are the same, it's an interest rate swap. When the currencies are different to each other, it's a cross-currency swap. So for interest rate swap, where the currencies are the same, I'm going to just bring it here. Bring the cash flows here. So for interest rate swap, where the currency is the same, IRS, interest rate swap, bond cash flow, adjust maturity days. So bond cash flows, adjust maturity days. Cash flows on the left side. Interest rate swap, bond cash flows, adjust principal amount. Principal amount, if you change that, you want to change that. So maturity days and a principal amount, this one you use. And for the interest rate swap cash flows, adjust maturity days. For the swap side, maturity days, this parameter, principal amount, this parameter. Cash flows on the right side, swap cash flows on left side bond. Cross currency, where the currencies are different. So I've got, for example, leave that to US dollar, I change that to GBP, British pound sterling. So the swap is in GBP. See, everywhere you see GBP is changed. So these are GBP cash flows, that's bond cash flows. So now we have cross-currency swap. Remember, all these other values are not necessarily correct. In fact, they will not be correct because the whole currency has changed, it's currency of swap. And so I'll have to calculate again the results. But for now, I'm actually just want to demonstrate the commands here. Sorry, not the commands, the actual what these cash flows are, where they are situated, not what they actually are, but where they are situated. So for the cross-currency swap, where there are two currencies, US dollar, GBP, for example. So that's CCS, cross-currency swap. So CCS, bond currency cash flows, adjust maturity days. Cash flows on left, adjust the maturity days here, adjust or subtract maturity days by the actual amount here, and the principal amount, maturity date. So there is the current CCS bond currency cash flows, adjust maturity days, cash flow on the left, and the adjusting the principal amount here. We will go through these in detail in a later tutorial, because as you can see, just explaining these is taking so much time because the subject is completely, very likely completely new to you. Even if you are an asset swap dealer or trader, you would find, because this detailed control you may not have in an asset swap model that you're currently using. I don't know. You may or may not have it, but in this particular AZMAT system, you have that power, that much flexibility. It's unbelievable what you have, because these were not available in those investment banks I went to demonstrate, to show, to give presentations of AZMAT system. And the asset swap dealers specifically asked me to include in a future version of AZMAT system. And that is what I have developed, because they did not have this. This is like a wish list they had. So it was not available in the particular asset swap model they were using, whichever particular system they had. Or some of them did not even had asset swap model even. So this one here, basically for the bond currency cash flow, adjust maturity days here, and the principal amount there for the cross currency swap, and for the swap for the CCS cross currency swap, again the swap side is on the right. Maturity days you can adjust by that, and the principal amount by that here. The user can make specific adjustments to the maturity date and or amount. And AZMAT system calculates the cash flows accordingly. These adjusted cash flows are then used in all calculations for that particular deal or transaction. For example, to calculate the present value, the LIBOR margin, and the net profit or loss. The cash flow amounts are always calculated to the date as displayed. Remember, date which is displayed here, dates are displayed, that's what this calculates at. The cash flow amounts are always calculated to the date as displayed. Any adjustment figure entered by the user to the principal amount is only used in calculations if it is applicable. If it's not applicable, it will not be used. So the cash flow amounts are always cash flow amounts are always calculated to the date as displayed. So if you display the date, whatever you see, that is actually as it's displayed for that particular date, whatever adjustment the user has entered that they want to have it done. Whatever the cash flow is shown here, you see the date, that is what the date that particular cash flow is for. Any adjustment figure entered by the user to the principal amount is only used in calculations if it is applicable. If it's not applicable, remember, it will not be used. For example, for an interest rate swap, right? Interest rate swap means what? Means interest rate swap means these two currencies are the same. So I'm actually going to use the undo command, so undo the GBP, which I typed just to make it cross-currency swap. So if I undo that command back to US dollar, so we're back to what we had before. So it is an interest rate swap. So, for example, for an interest rate swap, bond cash flows add or subtract principal amount parameter. So in the bond cash flows, add or subtract principal amount parameter is not applicable and should either be blank or zero. Okay, so for an interest rate swap, now an asset swap dealer or trader would know this. But if you're not an asset swap trader or dealer, you might think, okay, you may not know that this particular, by doing that, the actual principal amount for that, add or subtract, is meaningless. So it's not applicable, and it will not be used by AZMAT system. So, but if you're not, as I say, if you're not an asset swap dealer or trader, you may not realize that. So you might say, okay, I'll change this, see what happens. There is no principal amount figure to change. If you notice here, there is no principal amount. Principal amount here is on here, on this swap cash flow side. But, so if you do change it, if you enter something here, it'll just not use it. So it uses, AZMAT system will use it only if it is applicable. So cash flow amounts are always calculated to the date as displayed. Any adjustment figure entered by the user to the principal amount is only used in calculations if it is applicable. Right? It's not applicable here in the bond cash flow side. So if you change something here, okay, use this, AZMAT system will not use that. So for an interest rate swap, bond cash flows, add or subtract principal amount parameter is not applicable and should either be blank or zero. Any positive or negative amount entered by the user for this parameter is simply ignored by AZMAT system and not used in calculations. So if I simply enter, for example, say 500 there, it will just be ignored. It will be plus 500, or I can say minus 275, whatever I put it. Completely ignored because it's meaningless. Right? I'm going to put back the zero I had. For a cross-currency swap, for example, here I have here, I'll put it back GBP. I don't know why I put GBP, but it doesn't matter. You could put any well, okay, let's insert PVP, let's put JPY, Japanese yen. You can see here it says JPY, everything is JPY. These of course, the results are not correct, as you can see. These results will not be correct. But I'm not dealing with that matter for now. Only demonstrating, showing you the principal amount figure. What happens? So for a cross-currency swap, because the currencies are different, US dollar, bond currency swap JPY, different. And in here, for a cross-currency swap, where the two currencies are different, swap currency cash flows, in here, add or subtract principal amount. If you notice here, last value here, there is no principal amount. Principal amount is on the bond, currency of the bond here. So for cross currency, add or subtract principal amount parameter is not applicable. So this parameter is not applicable. So here, if I enter something, say 789, positive value, nothing happens here. Right? It has no value. Positive or negative, I can enter, say, -450, for example. Nothing happens here. So for a cross-currency swap, this parameter, principal amount parameter, is not applicable and should either be blank or 0. Any positive or negative amount entered by the user for this parameter is simply ignored by AZMAT System and not used in calculations, as we saw. What you see displayed here is what is used by AZMAT System. Here, the maturity date for cross-currency swap, the principal amount is meaningless here, inapplicable. So it will not use. So it should either be 0 or blank. So I'll put it back here like that for cross-currency swap. Whereas in interest rate swap, I have a US dollar. This parameter here, principal amount parameter here, is not applicable. Any adjustments will be ignored by AZMAT System. Lastly, so in here, we've got here just briefly one more point here to mention that. Just please note that any adjustments entered are used in all calculations. So any adjustments entered here, there, or here, wherever, whatever you entered, we entered in the yellow area. Remember, yellow area is where you enter the data. Any of these are all adjustments to the access swap model. So any adjustments entered are used in all calculations until they are changed by the user. AZMAT System doesn't go around changing any items you have entered here in yellow area anywhere. Those are the basic parameters it requires, but these are here, these are adjustments. So if you change any, if you enter any of the adjustments here, whatever you enter, they will be used by AZMAT System until they are changed by you, the user. Thus, if any particular transaction or deal required special adjustments, the user should remember to remove those adjustments after the calculations for that specific transaction or deal are completed. So if I've done these, say, for example, here, for this cross interest rate swap, this parameter is meaningless, but this parameter is not. So if I enter, watch this figure here, 999191. If I just to make it easier, if I add 700 here, 999191, 700 is added because I said so. I asked it to add 700 to the principal amount. Interest rate swap, maturity date, maybe that is what the actual the two counterparty and the bank have discussed and agreed upon, specifically for that particular deal or transaction. So what I'm saying is don't leave that adjustment there, because this is only applicable to this transaction or deal. If you do some or load another transaction or change these deals and create another what if, remember to remove that from here, anything in yellow, before proceeding with any other deal or transaction. So this doesn't have to be positive. For example, if you say plus 700, I can make it first put it back to 0 so you can see what the actual amount was. Back to 0, it was 999191. And I can say, right, instead of minus 191, if I just say, so that it's easier for us to see, if I say minus 91, for example. So it should remove, so 999, 191, 999, 100, right? So it's taken off, right? So it can be positive or negative. And anyway, I think at this point, I don't want to keep going because it could take a long time to keep on explaining various things. You can play around with this. I might go into another parameter in very much detail. At that point, we'll go through all these changing different things and what happened. But now I'm just going to put it back to 0, what the actual original values were. So to remember that whatever you enter here, these spatial parameters, not just here, also in here, actual cash flows change. Do remember to take them off. Remove these adjustments for when you finish that particular deal or transaction. And when you're trying some other one, open that particular model and remove any adjustment and make sure these adjustments are still applicable to what you are doing, the current transaction or deal. Also, a parameter which is currently not applicable will become applicable if the type of transaction or deal changes from interest rate swap to cross-currency swap and vice versa. So, for example, here, interest rate swap, this parameter, as we saw before, is not applicable. So I could have here for 50,000, I can make it say, okay, let's say 10,000. 10,000 positive amount, I'm saying, is meaningless. It will not be used in the calculations here. But right now, this is interest rate swap. So it has no meaning, it will not be used because it's not applicable. But if I change the currency, either there, it doesn't have to be that, it could be here as well. I change the currency to say GBP. So I have now, it's now cross-currency swap as soon as I press enter or return key. Not yet, I haven't pressed that. So when I press that, then the two currencies will be different. It becomes cross-currency swap. So right now, let's press the escape key, not right now as you see. Now, when the currencies are the same, this parameter is not applicable, so will not be used by AZMAT system. However, if I change any of this currency or that currency, this parameter will become applicable and will be used in the cash flows here. For example, you'll see, so the principal amount not applicable now. If I change the currency to say GBP, I've got 10,000 there, remember, plus. Now it has got 1,060,000 because previously that parameter was not applicable, but now it's become cross-currency, it is applicable. So I should not keep any of these adjustments there. AZMAT System will not remove them for you. You have to remove them if you have added and entered any specific amounts for these, any adjustments for these. Maturity days, all principal amounts, so on. So if this should be now, it is applicable, so it's being used. You may not have meant for it to be used. If you have not meant it to be used, they should make sure enter 0. Watch this amount. 1,060,000 because I had 10,000 added to it. Remove that 1,050,000. That's what it should be. That's what it was when the currencies were. Now the currency interest rate swapped, so it is that value was being used. I put it back to the US dollar, which I had interest rate swap. That any adjustment here is meaningless here because it's interest rate swap. But here will become applicable and will use. So I hope that's crystal clear now. It's up to you, the user, to change whatever adjustments you have made to the asset swap model. And all the adjustments, user adjustments, remember, they are all in here, in yellow, below this. This and this area. These two areas are the main parameters area. Main parameter area here of the currency of the bond, currency of the swap, and so on, various parameters. This is the adjustment one. All the adjustments area. And it's up to you, the user, to change them. All this, even this also applies, of course, manual curve or live curve, and whether to avoid Saturday or Sunday, and so on. The basis on which convention you should use. Right. Let's now, at this particular point, I'm just going to go to the AZMAT System data file to have a quick look at the time when this particular, I had started this particular session. So I think it's appropriate I stop this session now, because the next, there is, would you believe, there's quite a lot more to go in the asset swap model here, more detail, which we will go through in another tutorial. So this asset swap model, if you didn't believe before, you probably are beginning to believe if you have watched all these tutorials, or if you will see, even just by looking at the file, the videos names, where how many hours of tutorials have been spent on just describing the commands, various commands which are applicable to asset swap model. It's a really very, very comprehensive model. It should be regarded as as a system on its own, except that it does rely on all the rates environment as well, the curve files, the rates or curve files, reference curve files or user curve files, whatever. All these, they are used in here. So it's not completely independent, but apart from using the rates or curve files, all the AZMAT system command files are independent. And we will go through each of these items in detail in a later tutorial. Let me just have a quick bring. If I bring back the help file, I could just go here, there, click that, open that. If you look at this here, cost of basis swap, credit margin, deposit margin, margin adjustment, credit charge. We'll go through each of these in detail. In a different tutorial, but it will take quite some time. So I think at this point, I will stop this particular tutorial and we'll proceed with these commands in detail in a later tutorial. And as you can see, just this, if you can imagine here, this is so much specialist knowledge you can have about investment banking, how this is in real life, what the bond dealers and traders use and what they mean. So if you are keen to learn about investment banking terminology, various terms, why they're used, when they're used, there's a lot to learn, and you will learn depending how keen you are. So let's stop this right now. We'll just go back to I could close it, or I could just simply here I could, instead of going through using here, clicking, I could have actually, if I click here, view AZMAT help file, either from the utility menus, or we also have it, I think, same one under the view AZMAT file in the J menu, which is in the main menu of AZMAT system, where to open all these calculation models you can use. This one model, asset swap model, is more comprehensive than all these 11, these 3, 4, 7, 4, 11, compared with all these 11 of these calculation models total together are less than this one asset swap model, what it is. The next one is a bonds calculation model in terms of complexity and functionality, then floating rate notes model, and so on. These others are some of them are just AutoCalc. So as soon as you enter change the data, like here, the results are displayed on the screen. And there's no programming calculation in the background. Whereas in asset swap model, as you can see, it's half and half, not half, I'll just say some are partly calculated, partly by program. And same goes for the bonds calculation model also is partly calculated, AutoCalc, and partly by program. So we can actually just simply close these asset swap model if you like. But before I do, let's give it a name. 958101. Have a quick look at it. So I've clicked the wrong command. Cancel that. Go in here. So 958101. 958101, I have it here. We will leave it as it is. We won't make any changes right now. So I'll go back to that, and I'm just going to use I don't have to be here incidentally to close the access-swap model. I could be anywhere. So in fact, I'm going to go to here, for example, my user file, and I can just simply use the command from here. If I see in the U menu, for example, not in U menu, I think I have it probably in the close the current model. If I was actually on that particular model, then I'll say close current model, but I'm not. So I'll just use close all models. So it'll use whatever they are, whether it's the current one or not. However, I can also go back, go and say close, for example, close current curve that is there. I'm trying to see whether I have got I've actually given the command here. I have not got it there. So I can actually use this here, close access swap, because I know it's access swap model. This menu specifically for a swap model, that's all I have. I can use, but I could have just as easily, or I could still just as easily use from the U menu. Is it from the U menu? No, I think it's from the G probably. Close the all models command. We've only got one R model open, so let's use that, close all model. So if I go and look at it, I've only got the AZMAT data file. It's closed the access-swap model and the associated database file as well. And now I'm just going to, so that's all I have it. Let's just go and, so when I started the tutorial, it was 2:06 a.m. on 8th of September. So I'm going to now use that command again. Save as the data file 2:06. Save data is 3:52. I think it's long enough. Let's close. Let's stop the tutorial now, and we'll meet again at another tutorial. I'll close this finish this tutorial now. Thank you for watching.